Hi there, this is a new type of record review show. We're going to be reviewing classic albums, but the show is called The Contrarians for a reason. What we're going to do is we are going to be putting someone on the hot seat, picking an album by a band that perhaps may not be the standard public choice for the greatest album by that band. We're going to test their theory, see what it's like. Feel free to respond in the comments on YouTube here and tell us whether our guest hit the mark or not.
The first episode of The Contrarians, we're going to be talking about the Rainbow catalog, and we're going to ask Martin Popoff what his favorite Rainbow album is, which is...
Well, it is Rainbow Down to Earth, and I've had many arguments with a lot of people about this, and people say I'm completely crazy, but this absolutely is my best choice for a Rainbow album.
Get ready to have another argument right now.
Yeah. Well, what do you think?
I already disagree.
Okay.
My personal favorite album is Long Live Rock and Roll, although I do consider Rainbow Rising to be one of the best Rainbow albums.
Yes.
It would be tied for those two, I think.
Okay, and we've got those two right here as well. So, I can't disagree with that in a big way. I mean, I know you're right. I mean, those are the two choices that people usually pick. People usually pick Rainbow Rising. I remember, as a kid getting that album, and it was the first album in history that had no mellow songs on it whatsoever. It was 6 songs out of 6, completely heavy. So a lot of people love that. It's a Ronnie album. It's a Cozy Powell album, all that stuff. But what I love about Rainbow Down to Earth, first of all, the first Rainbow album I don't think is all that great at all. It's pretty weak. Rainbow Rising's great. Long Live Rock and Roll is great. I don't think anybody's going to pick any of the 3 Joe Lynn Turner albums as a great Rainbow album. What I like about this album is that, this has gotten a real bad rap for being poppy. For whatever
being
reason,
commercial,
right?
Yeah.
Being commercial. And I really think the only things that are commercial on here are Parts of All Night Long. The verse is pretty poppy. The chorus is pretty heavy. Since You've Been Gone is a cover of a Russ Ballard song. It's a total pop song. They do a good job of it, I think. It's a good, complicated pop song. And then it's got one, semi-ballad. Well, it is a ballad. Making Love on this is pretty much a ballad. So there's the argument, I think the complete argument for it being much of a poppy album. The other reason people don't really like this album very much, aside also from the crappy album cover, is it's the only album with Graham Bonnet on it. So it's like, this journeyman comes in, he goes out, he goes on a Michael Schenker, etc. But we do have 3 albums with Ronnie. We do have 3 albums with Joe Lynn Turner, but this is the only one with this singer. So you've got this funny situation where you've got a singer who's only around for 1 album. But no, what I love about this record is I love Cozy Powell's drumming on it. First of all, I think it is probably his best drumming. I don't think he's particularly groovy or recorded very well on Long Live Rock and Roll or Rising. I think he's incredibly groovy on this. I think it's my favorite Cozy Powell performance of all time. And I just think it has some really good heavy songs on it. I mean, Eyes of the World is a killer heavy track. No Time to Lose has got that circular sort of, funky Ritchie Blackmore classic Deep Purple riff to it. Love's No Friend is a nice heavy bluesy song. I actually think Danger Zone and Lost in Hollywood are 2 of the greatest Rainbow songs of all time. So I don't know what you think about that, but I just feel that there are some weaknesses to Long Live Rock and Roll. There are some weaknesses to Rising. I feel like Rising has got, Do You Close Your Eyes on it. It's got, Starstruck's kind of a shuffle thing. And then Long Live Rock and Roll's not greatly recorded. And like I say, the Joe Lynn Turner albums, I don't think there's really that much to them. They're a lot more commercial, and the quality of their production varies. But I mean, Lost in Hollywood. Here's a shot of the Joe Lynn Turner albums just to show what we're talking about here. We've got Difficult to Cure, Straight Between the Eyes, I think the last one's a pretty cool album. And then here's the first Richie Blackmore, which is a thing I had framed up, so it's in a frame. But no, I just really think that Lost in Hollywood is an absolute Rainbow classic. The movements it goes through, the vocal, the the pre-chorus, how they change riffs for the solo section, and all told, it's just a greatly produced album. So I don't know what are your thoughts on Down to Earth?
Well, I do agree with you that it is a step towards commercialism. I do think that the one song that they had off of it, Since You've Been Gone, like you said, is a cover of Russ Ballard. And to this day, so when they came back in 1995, and I did some research, it's the only song from that album that they actually perform live that's in their set list today. Is that one song from that album. They play way more songs from the original 3 albums and even the Joe Lynn Turner albums than they do from Down to Earth.
It's a good point. So what you're telling me is they don't like it very much, or Richie doesn't, or when they played live and stuff. So I understand that. It's true. I mean, so I kind of what you're saying is it's definitely not a fan favorite, and it's definitely not a band favorite. All they play is the cover off of it.
And actually, there's interviews with Richie Blackmore that you can look up where he talks about how he feels like Graham Bonnet wasn't a good fit for the band. And even playing on stage with him, you would just look at him and say he doesn't even look like he belongs in the band.
That's a good point. So it's got some bad vibes because of Graham Bonnet's image with the short hair and the sort of nice, neat, classy, almost corporate clothes. And I mean, vocally, it's hard to say. I mean, he does a good job on it. I like him personally, but I do have that problem a little bit with the fact that he's in and he's parachuted out kind of right away. So it's a good point.
Right, and all the other band members coming and going. It seemed like the band at that time was kind of convoluted. Right. I do disagree. I do think that first album has some great songs on it, like the songwriting, Catch the Rainbow, even like Black Sheep and like Self Portrait. Those are great tunes, and the songwriting on that's great. And I think Dio wrote a lot of the lyrics in the original 3 albums.
I've had some people argue for that one and think it's a pretty good album. I think the production's kind of weak. It almost sounds a little bit demo-ish. I think that band as it evolved out of Elf wasn't that great. And a funny thing about it does have a little bit of that funky, just a tiny bit of that jazz fusion vibe that you see all the Deep Purple guys going into at that point. You can almost write a book on this, like Pace Ashton Lord, the Ian Gillan band before it becomes Gillan, the John Lord stuff, even the Roger Glover weird solo stuff. So it almost, to me, I can't get that out of my head that it fits in that kind of like, we're trying to be jazzy, funky rock and roll thing, which Richie hated. And obviously, they really turned it on for Rising, but I don't know. I find Rising just a little bit harsh. I don't find it very groovy. Terra on the side with the 4 songs, Terra Woman, of course, is an amazing song, but Do You Close Your Eyes is a little down. Run with the Wolves a little down, Starstruck. And as soon as you start saying that, well, they're pretty cool songs. But I mean, I think the songs that everybody loves are Light in the Black and Stargate.
Right,
so those are considered the 2 classics. But when you only got 6 songs on it, you start complaining about 2 and even 3 of them. You're almost up to half the songs you're complaining about. I don't feel that about Down to Earth. I even think Making Love's a pretty cool song. I like the Since You've Been Gone cover. But like I say, Danger Zone and Lost in Hollywood, both of them with stupid titles. They don't sound like Rainbow titles, of course, but I just think both of those are just these tight, epic, really cool, cruising, regal, United Kingdom, British sounding songs, and I think the whole album is just action-packed start to finish, and a great production. So I get into this all the time with people. I mean, and it also comes down to, which are the ones that are. I get a little bit of that. I'm sick to death of that album thing when it comes to like when we talk about Black Sabbath, Paranoid, and things like that, right? So I feel I have a little bit of that with Rising too. But no, Down to Earth, I just never get tired of.
Right. So you talked about the production on the first album being, kind of the way it was.
Right,
what do you think Roger Glover brought to Down to Earth that made it for you sound better produced than those original albums? Because to me, like that first album, it sounds a little bit raw and it kind of has maybe a little bit of a live feel to me, and that's kind of, you get that feeling from it, that more whole, warm feeling than I do when I listen to Down to Earth.
Yeah, and I find, you know, the second one's a little raw, the third one is even a little raw. Roger, I don't know, he's coming from, I mean, famously he's coming from the Judas Priest Sin After Sin session, which is a very like technical, academic, thin sort of sound. I don't think this is as radical. It's just well done. It's just correct all the way around. It just sounds good. The whole album sounds good. It does have a little bit of dryness to it, but it does have pretty good, you know, audio range to it as well. So I don't know what he's bringing in terms of song production stuff. He's a very, you know, strong-minded guy. I don't think he would be a guy to back down from Richie and tell him that's a good idea or that's a bad idea. And you know, they kept it going. There's no instrumentals. There's good variety. It's sequenced almost like a radio station would sequence an hour of their, you know, radio thing. It's got different velocities on it. You know,
it's a lot less progressive, right? And it's a lot more straight ahead. Kind of. To me, it sounds less unique than the original albums. Like when
that's
I think
true.
about Rainbow, I think of that sound, like that Dio singing and the progressiveness of Rainbow Rising and those 8-minute tracks, right? That's to me is what Rainbow is when I think of Rainbow, right?
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
The album you're talking about, it's not, to me, is more commercial, less unique. Yeah. More kind of what everybody else was doing.
That's absolutely true as well. I mean, obviously they're getting away from those cool epic Dio lyrics. There isn't any of that on here. Graham Bonnet isn't that kind of lyricist, and Richie's not writing the lyrics certainly. So Graham is the guy in there doing that. I'm not sure. I haven't really looked this up, but you know, I would suspect Roger worked a fair bit with Graham on lyrics because Roger is a pretty good lyricist. He works with Ian a lot in Deep Purple on that sort of thing. So I don't mind that it's a little less Dungeons and Dragons and a little more you know, out there in the real world. It feels like a mature, grown-up album to me that way as well. So I'm turning your negative into a positive.
Right. Well, another point I want to make is that you mentioned that, you know, once they got with Joe Lynn Turner, then the whole band started kind of going a lot more commercial. So that's, to me, like Down to Earth kind of signals the end of that classic Rainbow, and it goes, you know, it's signaling the turn into that more commercial and more like poppy, more love songs and stuff like this. And that's not the albums, and that's not the sound that people associate with Rainbow, right?
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, I just argue to the death with a lot of people when they say this album is one of the poppy ones, because it's definitely way less poppy than all the Joe Lynn Turner ones. Like when you start chopping it down, everybody's always remembering All Night Long, Since You've Been Gone, Making Love Maybe, if they know the album that well, but they're forgetting the super crazy heavy songs, the great riffs all over, like the whole solid rest of the whole album. So it is making that turn, but as you brought up a good point earlier, I think it's making that turn more so with the lyrics, and we've changed the vocalist. They've gotten rid of the rainbow logo, of course, too. Where is that again? So I mean, there's no more gothic rainbow logo up here, and they've just got this stupid, I don't know, even calling the album Down to Earth is dumb, I thought. But Don Airey's on this, right? We got, like I say, Cozy's doing a great job. I mean, what an all-star lineup! It's pretty incredible who's all over this album. So and I think Cozy does a great job. But yeah, you're right. So I don't know. I will stand by my thing. But you're right. You are absolutely. You know, the fact of the matter is, it goes Rainbow Rising, In the World, Long Live Rock and Roll. Down to Earth may not even be in the top 4 or 5. So
right, and you made the point that people always remember, you know, Since You've Been Gone, because that was the album's only hit, right? And it's the only song that they go to when they play live on Rainbow compilations. It's the only song that they feature, so it's the only memorable song, and it wasn't even a Rainbow song, like you said, right? It was a Russ Ballard song.
Yeah.
I'm equipped with some stats that Martin doesn't have, right? Okay. So I'm going to shoot some bullets at him. So actually, Down to Earth was the second least charting album out of all of Rainbow's albums, Long Live Rock and Roll being the least. So the before that you had Rainbow Rising, and you had Richie Blackmore's Rainbow, and then after that you had Difficult to Cure and Bent Out of Shape. All 4 of those albums charted higher than Down to Earth. Right? Straight
Between the Eyes too, right in there.
Right.
Yeah. Well, you know, and it's a funny year. This is coming out in 1979, right? I better check that again. I'm pretty sure 1979. Yeah, and it's a funny year. So Rainbow still is not really making it. They're not They're not breaking through at this point. They're still an underground band, and when you make an album like Long Live Rock and Roll, despite that stupid album title, I mean, it's a pretty underground album, right? So they're still doing that, and Richie has always had this pop sensibility in the back of his mind. He always wanted to break through. I mean, one of the big, standard metaphor jokes, whatever, is that, oh, I'm a big ABBA fan or whatever, right? So he's searching, he's trying to break through, he's trying to do something for radio, obviously, way more. Since You've Been Gone, like, was an incendiary. I mean, the fan base rioted when they heard that. And 79 is an interesting year because it's a real down year for metal, for hard rock. Most metal bands have broken up. They're making a lot of their worst music. There's a big transition going on. Punk, new wave. I could cite a dozen examples of bands who are just blowing it big time, bands we loved as kids before 1979 who were blowing it in 1978 and 1979. So it's a weird year. It's almost like it's not expected for hard rock to do well. It's pretty out of fashion.
Right. Who do you think's a better singer, Joe Lynn Turner or Graham Bonnet?
I think Joe Lynn Turner's a better singer. I think Graham, I love Graham's voice, but he always had this sound where he sounds like he's struggling and pushing air, and I think he really is. He's out there with Michael Schenker now, and he's killing it. He's doing fine. At his advance, he's probably 70 or more. I like his voice more than Joe Lynn Turner's, but Joe Lynn Turner is a much more natural singer. I think he's more of a trained singer. Graham Bonnet, for all his look and all that thing and his vast history and not even being a metal guy, I never got the sense that he was as trained as Joe Lynn Turner. Like, Joe Lynn Turner just seems like he can open up his mouth and say no problem. And he had a little bit of the Ronnie to him in that respect. I mean, he even sounds cleaner and easier than Ronnie did.
Right.
But Graham, this is made in a studio, and it's going to be perfect, and it is perfect. But you almost get the sense that if you watched 10 Rainbow concerts from that era, you'd be cringing half the time. So I don't know if he was as good, because it really sounds like he has to work to hit those notes.
Right. Who do you think's better, Ronnie James Dio or Graham Bonnet, singer?
I would say both voice and singer. I would say Ronnie.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say Ronnie has a better voice, and Ronnie is a better singer. Ronnie knows to do a lot more different things with his voice. He's more thespian and actorly with it than Graham. He's got a lot more imagination. Plus, he's bringing, a real marriage of his voice with the lyrics. He loves writing lyrics. He writes great lyrics, so he's really selling those lyrics. Graham, I never got the feeling from Graham, and I've interviewed him many times. I mean, I never got the feeling from him that he was that super connected to the writing lyrics part of his job.
Right. So basically, your least favorite singer in Rainbow is Graham Bonnet.
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah,
and the lowest charging singer,
yeah,
is Down to Earth.
Yeah, that's fine. I don't mind. I mean, because I just think the songs are amazing. He does a great job. He is the guy writing the lyrics, so he is in there doing that. I mean, I do love Graham as a singer and
right.
as a voice. And he's my favorite Michael Schenker album too. Alcatraz first album is one of my favorite albums of all time. So Graham's all over the place on some great albums.
I mean, he is cool, but if you look at his picture, it does look like his picture should be hanging in a barber shop somewhere on the wall,
Yeah. And he got a lot of abuse for that too, right? Yeah. But I just want to go back and make one other point. I mean, if anybody, before you start commenting on this and seeing if I'm wrong, I really want you to check out Danger Zone and Lost in Hollywood and tell me if those aren't two of the greatest Rainbow songs of all time, especially Lost in Hollywood. I mean, Cozy's drumming on that is amazing. Like I say, they go into this whole different verse thing when the solo comes along. It just transitions from part to part. It just hits you hard. It stops for this little classical moment, and then it just bangs out like a machine gun when it's over. It's just, again, it's almost like it's buried at the it's at the end of the album, right? Very last song, yeah. So it's buried at the end of the album. It's called Lost in Hollywood, which is the most un-English title you can come up with. So it just feels like it wasn't given the attention it should have been. But again, when people think of this as a poppy album, I want you to go to some of those songs and just tell me if those aren't some of the greatest Rainbow songs of all time.
Right. And then I'm going to make one last point and say, once you're done checking out those 2 songs, go back and listen to Rising, and then make your world whole again, basically.
Cool. Well, with that, let's wrap it up.
Right. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yes. Very cool.
Okay, guys, that was the Contrarians. That was a Rainbow album. Let us know what your favorite Rainbow album is and what you think of the episode, and give us your points below. We just gave you ours, and don't forget to subscribe. See you next time.